Let's bring in Elizabeth Wydra, president of the Constitutional Accountability Center, and Ilya Shapiro, senior fellow in constitutional studies at the Cato Institute and editor-in-chief of the Cato Supreme Court Review. Great to see both of you. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
Elizabeth, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that addressing technical differences is not quite enough for you.
Yeah, definitely, Leland. You know, there is a much bigger problem, which is the Constitution. If, as Stephen Miller says, this is basically the same policy as the EO, the problem is that it, in practice, in design, in effect, targets Muslims. And that runs headlong into constitutional guarantees against preference of one religion over another, against discrimination on the basis of religion, and fundamental American values, not to mention some statutory problems, but I think really this big picture problem of line drawing based on religion, which Justice Kennedy in the Supreme Court has said is forbidden by the Establishment Clause, is a big problem.
Ilya, and it strikes me, and I get this argument from the left that this has everything to do with religion, but there's some practicalities here. You think about the 7 countries that this travel ban deals with: Somalia, Libya, Syria, Yemen. All failed states. There is no way to know anything about anybody who's coming out of these countries because there's no security services inside the countries to deal with, to talk with. Iraq security services, another country, in a complete mess. Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism, have every reason to tell the United States, shall we say, misleading information about people they would want to slip in. Is this about, does that argument matter at all, or do we keep coming back to what Elizabeth is talking about when it comes to this is a religious litmus test?
At this point, it's all about the political atmosphere. If this had been rolled out, as apparently it's going to be next week, with all of these fixes, they're not necessarily minor, by the way. I disagree with Stephen Miller. They're important things to tailor this order. If this had been done from the very beginning, I don't think we'd be where we are, because foreigners abroad don't have constitutional rights. Whether you're talking about religion or other categories, there's a lot of ways that the executive has discretion under the law, as long as they're acting truly in the national interest and not kind of arbitrarily. And so right now we're at a situation where courts have ruled in various ways, and judges are going to be less deferential than they would have been if we were writing on a clean slate. But from what I've seen about how they're going to tailor this to countries that have been identified in certain ways, and certainly pausing refugees, things like that, whatever the policy merits, and there maybe I have more agreements with Elizabeth, but on the law, this really shouldn't be a problem.
So Elizabeth, if we're hearing that it shouldn't be a problem, we've heard it shouldn't be a problem from the White House as well, where do groups like you go with this? Do you try to cherry pick another venue like Seattle, like Boston, in trying to get a favorable ruling and then force this up to the Supreme Court? Or do you decide, hey, we're going to step back and see how this plays out for a couple of weeks?
Well, I don't think you have to cherry pick a venue. I think any judge who looks at the Constitution will find that there's a problem here. We've had judges rule, whether it's on the Establishment Clause violation, the Due Process Clause violation, and those are not limited to simply green card holders. You can have people, U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents here, who want to reunite with family members in those 7 countries who can raise these claims. And the Establishment Clause and the other provisions of the Constitution are limitations on government action themselves. That's really important here to remember.
Well, so in a word, suffice it to say, you are going to be taking this new executive order on pretty much regardless of what it says in court.
Well, no, I mean, obviously we want to see what it says, but it doesn't seem from what the administration has put forth that it's going to be very different in the fundamentals.
Well, as President Trump tweeted, I'll see you in court. Sounds like we're going to be back at it again and have you both
Happy
back
to be there
to talk about it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Good
Leland.
to spend time with you.
All the best. Jenna?
Well, House Speaker Paul Ryan